Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery. You're watching Tuesday's Tip of the Week number 93. In today's video, we're going to go over the beginning processes of what I do with a bow in order to help me get better aim with it. I'm gonna go over what I'm doing with loop height, making sure the draw length is fitting what I need to, loop length, getting briefly into draw peak weight and holding weight with that let off percentage. But mainly today, we're gonna focus on looking at loop height, and then we're gonna focus on balancing everything out with lightly going over some stabilizer stuff. I'm gonna make a video just over stabilizers that's gonna complement what we talk about today with loop height, our holding weight, and our peak weight. But that'll be coming out in a future video, maybe next week, maybe the week after, but I will have that. I know a lot of you are wanting to see that. But guys, let's get right into this video. All right guys, the first thing I'm gonna do when it comes to making my bow aim as best as I can possibly get it to is set everything dead center through the burger buttonhole, middle of the arrow through the middle of the burger buttonhole with the loop and the arrow at 90 degrees to the string. That's what I'm looking for as my basis on a brand new bow that I have no clue what I'm looking at and what I need to do with it. I'm gonna roughly get my draw length where I think it needs to be. If you have different axle to axle bows, this can change a little bit. If you have different grip angles, this can change a little bit. So I'm gonna roughly get this based off of what I've done in the past, knowing my draw length. And the same thing with the loop length. I'm gonna go with a very standard loop length with what I use in the past. If you don't know what you should use, start with 3/4 of an inch. Now that's a pretty round number. You may need 7/8, you may need 5/8, you may need 3/4, you may need something closer to an inch or closer to 1/2 inch, but start there and that'll get you in the ballpark. From this point, what I'm doing is I'm drawing the bow back on target and doing aiming drills. And for me, aiming drills just mean that I'm seeing what my aim looks like, the float pattern, if it's holding low or high, and then I'm starting to make adjustments on my D-loop. Now for me, I use a trick that Paige Pierce talked about, and it's taking the D-loop and just rotating it, spinning it up and down the serving. Doing this is way simpler than messing with tiller or doing anything else. Of course, you can't have your tied knock sets in yet, but that's okay because we're just getting everything roughed in. But when I'm doing this, typically I will start raising the loop up from where it was, lowering it down, and just seeing what I'm needing based off the hold. If I'm holding low, then I'm gonna start raising that loop up and see if I can get my hold on target to start floating and making that pattern around the middle. Now, eventually you're gonna go too high with the loop and you're gonna notice that you start having to relax the bow arm too much, your float gets worse. So then you just back off to the best spot. Once I've found that, then I'm gonna go through and make some measurements on the bow, find out where the arrow rest needs to be. Again, I want that to be with the arrow at 90 degrees to the string. So that's my starting point for all of this for tuning. And that's how I'm gonna start setting this bow up with looking at tying in knock sets, tying the loop back on, doing everything standard like I would before. One thing that I will point out is when we are doing this, we wanna make sure that we're not just holding statically at full draw if we're the type of archer that is gonna pull through their shot. Work your shot like normal. You can hold with your hinge without it firing more on your index or with the thumb trigger without putting your thumb on the trigger. Work through a normal shot, just like you always would, and see how that aim reacts. What we're doing there is we're just adjusting things based off what is needed to get us to hold in the middle with the pressures that we have when the shot needs to fire during shot execution at that pivotal moment. All right, when it comes to basic setup with our stabilizers with what we're doing here, what I do typically is I will take all the weights off the bars, set them on the bow, and I'm not very scientific about the back bar. I'm literally getting it out of my way. I am liking running this back bar off the front mount to where it's kind of closer to my body, closer to my elbow and my arm. So I am kicking the bar out away from the bow far enough to give me clearance on my arm when the bow releases the arrow and it wants to tilt forward, and I am slightly tilting this back bar down a little bit to give me a little bit of extra clearance again. and just give me some wiggle room so that when I start adding weights on, if I need a little bit more leverage off that back bar, I can raise it back up a little, and if I need less, I can lower it down. The other thing is I want to see what my draw length and loop length is doing with no weights on the bars. And again, I'm going to go into this more in depth when we start using stabilizer setup and we're going from scratch on this, and I will give you all the info on there. But this is what I'm doing for just a basic setup while I'm doing aiming drills. And then I will just add a little bit of weight on the front and add a little bit to the back, and generally keep it around a 1-to-2 ratio to begin with. And what I'm looking for is just seeing how my loop height is affected by weight added to the bow. Because sometimes you'll have your aim really good until you start adding weight on, and then you'll notice that the loop is too high or it's too low and you need to adjust. So that is something to check out when we're doing this, and something to keep in mind as well. All right guys, hopefully this video is helping you out with the initial side of what we're doing with the aiming and getting our bow set up. I will continue this in other videos. We're gonna definitely talk about stabilizers. We'll talk more in depth about draw length and loop length if you'd like as well. And then comment down below. Let me know what you want to see. I have a ton of options that we can do for filming on content. I have this bow completely set up right now, but I'm waiting on weights for the stabilizers and I'm waiting on strings. So when I get my string set from Gas Bow Strings, all this is coming off and it's all getting redone again. So I have plenty of opportunity to do a little bit more in depth with stuff or change and do some different topics. But let me know guys, again, comment below, like the video. That helps the algorithm, helps this video get out to more people. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about doing so. Check out all the other videos on here. I've been doing this for multiple years now. There's a lot of good nuggets on there for whatever you may be looking for and needing help with. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you soon.